of our worries. That's a
The
typical bit.
least.
I'm enjoying seeing some names that I remember from last year, which is great. I love that. I think I recognize Scott. Sonia Marie, she's here. We got Julie. Julie works with us. That's great. She's back. And last night we had North Sky. So last night you should have had the North Sky from Allagash. Maine, probably know them for their white, which is as widely distributed of a independently owned beer as they come. That's stout. So good. Chad, I know you're trying to do something, but at 7.5%, what was your thought? Roasty, toasty?
You're going to make me multitask right now. Yes, the 7% stout was delicious, and I'm a huge fan of Allagash. So
Abigail just said that last year she received it as a gift, and this year she didn't trust that friend to give it to her again, so she just bought it for herself. She didn't say the middle part, but that's amazing. I'm so happy you did it. Would love to see people's ratings out of 10 for the North Sky. It did pretty well on Untappd. We've got people from Houston. Scott's beer was Springfield, Illinois. Josh, I'll talk about Illinois as much as people will let me. Chad will let me. J-Dub gave it a 4.2, which is good. Scott, I'll take both of your numbers. I can just divide them too for the North Sky. J-Dub said that Abigail gave it a 7. Matt's from Philly. Love it. Are we streaming, Chad?
We are streaming.
Janice Hoplin over here.
I'm thirsty. We are good to go. Sorry about that. All right. So what we got going on tonight, Todd, for the next 30 minutes?
So we already said we're going to be reviewing Sonia Marie. You're a little rattled, but just want to review. We have this box. We're going to get to it. 1 beer a night. If you drink them all tonight, that's fine. We don't encourage it, though. 9 o'clock, you'll be with us. Chad, let's give a little bit of background about who we are. So I've known you 15 years at this point. Let's cheers. Not our first beer together. Clink. I've known you 15 years. We've done this 3 times. I think an introduction is in order. I'll let you go first since I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. I am Chad Brodsky. I am the CEO and founder of City Brew Tours. Started City Brew Tours back in 2008. Also under the CBT brand is Bruvana. That started out, this box actually started out as a COVID thing. I love Hanukkah. I love beer. I figured let's combine the two things. And that's why we have the Hoppy Hanukkah experience. And then that kind of actually became a virtual experiences company with Unboxed Experiences and Bruvana. We have a beer of the month club as well. So I'm also a certified Cicerone, and I am a girl dad of a 3.5-year-old.
That's great.
How about you, Todd? How's that? I always ask Todd how my introductions are on a scale from 1 to 10.
That was pretty good. I liked the background. You
6,
usually
7.
will mention like where you live right now.
No, Boston. You're right.
So you left out a couple
it wasn't
if I was your wife, I wouldn't be thrilled that you didn't mention me, but I'm not. So as far as me, Todd, I'm Chief Innovation Officer here for City Brew Tours and Bruvana. This is my 3rd year, like I've said, doing a live stream with Chad. A blast. Really look forward to it. I spend a lot of time, doing normal business things. So the opportunity to drink beer and talk to Chad and interview people is super, super exciting. I live in Vermont, which is a great place to be if you love beer. I'm originally from Chicago, which I won't shut up about, much to everyone asking me to. And I'm not. I have 2 dogs, and I'm married, so a dog dad. I don't know if that counts. Okay, so I would like to know, for the people in the chat, I would like to know a little bit of where people are celebrating from. And I want to know best beers that were drank in 2022. Chad, what was the best beer you drank in 2022?
Oh, that's a tough one. I knew you were going to ask this question, but didn't think you were going to ask me this question. And so
I can tell you. You can ask
tell
me
me
and so you can think.
Oh, okay. What was the best beer that you've had?
I went to GABF this year and in Denver, and I drank like a million beers, but I did weasel just a little taste of some unreleased barley wine from Revolution in Chicago, and it was just tremendous. I loved it. It was the best sip of my year, so I only had a sip.
I did have a good friend that shared some Cantillon on one of our company outings, and so I'm going to go with Cantillon.
I had that also.
What do we got here? We got some Trillium, Daily Intag.
Pat said there are too many.
Hot Saucy Brewworks, Numb Nuts, Imperial, Peanut Butter, Vanilla Cream Stout. That sounds
so many words. That's like a mouthful. Ethan made a Janis Joplin joke. Jingle Java from Bent River. Love it. Okay, Chad, let's talk about Janis Joplin.
All right. So we've got Janis Joplin right here. Whoop. There you go. And we're going to do actually I think we should do a beer appraisal. It's the first night, and it's always a good thing to do a beer appraisal. And why not do it with Janis Joplin? What do you think, Todd? Does that sound like a good plan?
Good beer to do it with. And I know I'm going to hold you accountable. I also have some beer accolades myself, but I'm going to use our trusty little booklet to keep you honest and ask you some questions as we do it. So, Mark McClellan, Fat Pug from Maplewood, Chicago. All right. So what's step one, Chad?
All right. So step one is appearance, and look how clean that beer looks. This is an IPA. I know what the big craze right now with IPAs are. What's the big craze, Todd?
I live in Vermont.
Yeah, I don't think you can find an IPA in Vermont that you can actually see through. It's probably impossible in the New England area. So if you look at this one, this is a beautiful West Coast IPA. I mean, we are
Portland, Oregon.
So clocking in about 6.5%. So perfect. So appearance, just for you, Todd, or the chat, what color is this beer?
I saw someone in the chat, who was it? Daniel said that it was orangish, which, like caramely. And so, Chad,
a great way about appearance. A great thing about appearance. A trick to know something about your appearance. If you take two fingers and you wiggle them back and forth, I want everyone to do this at home. What can you see your fingers in the chat? No, maybe. All right. No one answered because Julie is already ruining my jokes, where if you did actually take your fingers, this is going to tell me two things about this beer. It's going to tell me first that it is clear. It did go through some filtration process, but it also will tell me that you'll do anything I say when it comes to tasting beer. But appearance, Todd, now I said my joke. Dad joke. Your turn.
That's part of being the girl dad, I understand. So color, you were just talking about color. Use our craft beer cheat sheet. What should we point people to in terms of what gives beer its color?
You want me to answer, or is it for the chat?
Yes. No, it's for you. You tell us.
We're going to go with malt. So malt, Josh, with the right answer. Yes, malt is going to give it its color. Most beers will have about 80% of a neutral malt grain, and then they use a bunch of different little specialty malts for that percent. And so malt is the answer to that. All right. So being this is a West Coast IPA.
What's step two, Chad?
Aromatics. Oh, so good. So with this beer on that nose, you get some pine, a little bit of grapefruit notes. Ooh, David gets peach. And
I'm a pine guy on this one. I'm used to the big citrus ones, and I get a little. But
you're used to like hop bomb, like passion fruit, orange juice, things like that. This is going to be that more floral pine characteristics. And so our next, do you want to ask another cheat sheet question?
Aromatics, Chad. What if I'm looking at my cheat sheet, what am I getting my aromatics from? The menorah? Don't read. I can't read.
It's gonna be your hops, Mr. Todd. So yep, Ethan's got it. Hops are gonna be where we're gonna get those aromatics. But let's get to the best part. Taste.
I'm gonna finish this before we talk to the person.
I'm gonna just pound this. It's so delicious. So with taste, I want everyone to take out that awesome booklet that Todd was just using. And
Vanna White.
And you got your beer flavor wheel. So this is a great tool that you can use over the next 7 nights when you're tasting your different beers to pick out the different flavor profiles and aromatic profiles of your different beer. And so looking at this on a taste, what's the chat get on the taste side of things using your handy dandy booklet? I feel like Blue's Clues, the 3.5-year-old. Your handy dandy notebook. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. All right. I get a little bit of a woodiness, a little bit of a caramel note as well. If you take a sip at home and you hold your nose while you do it,
not gonna taste anything.
You're gonna notice that you loses so much of its flavor. That's because 80% of what we perceive as taste is actually coming from the nose. That's why we like to drink glasses. We like to drink beer from glasses at Bruvana. Pretty much.
Absolutely. It also lets some of those bubbles come out, so I'm not burping at you the whole time, and I'm not going to get super full.
All right, and then our last step in this beer appraisal, because we got to get to our guest, is that's 15. Crazy. 12,000 just blew my mind as I'm talking. So it's finished. Todd, how has beer changed you physically, mentally, emotionally, potentially fiscally?
I'm now the finish of this beer makes me just want more beer. Is that a finish? Like wanting to pour more beer?
Don't fight that urge. Everyone at home, cheers. Ooh, yeah, nice
slight bitterness, but not for. If I'm not mistaken, this bad boy is 6.5%. It subtle, not being
and not overly, not super bitter where it's like astringent, which you get a lot on those kind of West Coast IPAs. But it has Jeff said it right. It has just enough of that bite for that
you want
flavor.
in an IPA.
Right. Now we've talked about this beer. I think we should hear from the team who created the right from the horse's mouth.
Yes. We're going to be joined by Sonia Marie Leikam of Leikam Brewing. I just promoted her to a panelist, so she should be right here. Look at this. Here's the big reveal.
Hello! I did it!
Sonia, you're back. Oh my gosh. We're so excited to have you back as a guest. Thank you so much for joining us again. We loved Winter Red last year, and we wanted to continue our conversation with in 2022. So thanks so much for joining. So we're doing something a little bit. Oh, Todd.
Before we get to, I just want a quick reminder. If you have any questions for Sonia Marie's second appearance, Q&A, send them through and we'll get to them. But Chad, sorry, back to you.
All right, so we're gonna do things a little differently we're gonna do the Chad 5. So I'm just gonna rapid fire questions at you. All right. We're just gonna
Ready.
start as their introduction. What's your name?
Sonia Marie, Leikam,
Good job.
like the brewery.
You're doing
Correct.
good. Where are you from?
Originally from Southwest France, grew up in California, and I've been in Oregon 27 years.
And what's your job title?
Proprietress.
Love it. And if you could drink a beer with a Jew from history that's dead or alive, who would it be and why?
All right. So, Yehudit or Judith, she's a kick-ass warrior woman who is incredible. And it ties into the holiday of Hanukkah too. So she went and cut off
for people at home.
Yeah.
That don't know Yehudit or Judith.
Yeah,
'cause I
let's
don't think
pretend
Todd-
people don't know
Todd
who she is.
doesn't
Like, if
know
other people
who this person
might
is.
not know who this person is, other people, what should they know about this person?
She should know that before the Maccabees, so that's the Hanukkah story, she also helped conquer and destroy folks who wanted Jews to assimilate. And she went and with her wonderful personality, as well as what the legend says, salty cheese, went to the army's leader and had him have a beautiful feast. And he ate all this salty cheese. And then he drank all this wine and got really, really drunk, fell asleep. And she cut his head off and then took his head and showed it to the army, that then fled and let the Jews be and not have to assimilate and worship. So similar, like Yehudit and then Judah Maccabee, there's some interesting, like, same roots of the name. But she was the OG, and I think Judah was inspired by her courage. So
yeah, we owe it to you. We owe it to you, Yehudit, for probably Hanukkah for the most part.
I'm going to reconsider next time I get a little hungover and ask for my head to be removed.
Right. And what some people don't know is potatoes actually are from South America. So in the beginning, Hanukkah was observed by like kind of these ricotta, like cheese pancakes, which in some places of the world, they still eat them. So potatoes are really like a later product because they went from South America into Eastern Europe. But the earlier observances of Hanukkah were like fried ricotta cheese pancakes. So
sounds delicious,
right? Yeah.
Who wants fried
Sign me up.
ricotta cheese pancakes in the chat versus their regular potato latke? I mean, me, please. All right, Todd, that was great.
Right.
You did so good on those 5 rapid fire questions. I applaud you.
You have done the best ever.
That's so far.
Thank you.
And the worst. So last year we talked a lot about your role. If you weren't here last year, for those of you at home, we talked a lot about your role in the beer industry as both like being a woman brewer and being Jewish. And something that I think is especially cool that I think we want to talk about this year is that your brewery is kosher. And so I want to really focus on that this year. So we're going to start with a question that we actually get a lot. We do a lot of virtual events where we're sending beer. And so we'll get the 3-word question that just says, is beer kosher?
Yeah. So it's an easy answer and a complex answer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy in the sense that beer in its most pure form, created by a non-Jewish person, is going to be kosher. So when there's no other ingredients, no modern filtrations or refinings or additives, all that stuff, then yes, it is kosher beer. If made by a Jew, they need to sell the beer and the barley and all of the products that are forbidden chametz or forbidden grains during Passover for it to be kosher. In a modern setting, beer goes through more complex processing, and so not all beer is kosher. For example, a lot of those hazy IPAs will have lactose added to them. That's something that a lot of folks know. Our hazy IPA does not have lactose in it. We use flaked oats and other natural non-milk products
for those proteins.
To get that. And then there have been some clarifying agents used that contain gelatin. Now, that's not as common nowadays. Most folks are not using gelatin as a clarifying agent, but that was something that was commonly used for a long, long time. Now, most folks are either using fish bladders, or what we use is an algae-based product. So all of our beers are also vegan, in addition to being kosher. But the kosher certification process is one that we pay for. It's a supervision of all of our ingredients, that they're all kosher certified. And because we are a Jewish home, we actually symbolically sell the brewery and all of its contents during the holiday of Pesach, and don't technically own that, as well as don't produce any beer on high holidays or Shabbat or any of those non-work holiday observances. We have a little loophole in the sense that having non-Jewish staff is very helpful for some of these things. So that's sort of a high level, hopefully answers some of those questions.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is to the ingredient distinction versus the kosher certification. And I think a lot of the times that's the question that we're receiving from, people who are planning events, or, hey, I'm having a birthday party or whatever it is, and I know someone who's coming keeps kosher, and I don't know really the right questions to ask. So how do you sort of direct those people if they're maybe aren't in Portland and can't get to your brewery?
Yeah, so one of the best resources would be the Orthodox Union. It's a larger certifying agency, and there are a number of larger producers that will run a kosher line. So for example, New Belgium will run Fat Tire, occasionally kosher. And there are a couple other places that will do that. But I think asking questions about how the beer was made is really important. So one of the things, the certification is kind of that extra yes seal, kind of like organically certified, or, any plethora of certifications that you can get. But I would ask, are there any additives that I should know about? In our case, we use herbs and fruit that is 100% fruit puree, herbs that are processed, that are kosher, where we chop them up ourselves. And just being aware of what's in that beer, and how it was made. Avoid those milk stouts, lactose-y things. That's never a good
birthday
move.
Cake.
Yeah, that peanut butter something or other.
Oyster is definitely not probably a good choice.
Chad loves an oyster stout. We will keep that up.
No oyster stout.
No bacon. Ralph beers or anything like that.
The Voodoo Donut inspired rogue beer. That's probably not a good move. I think that was a maple bacon something.
So I have a question actually related to that. So, and this I know you're not a macro brewery or a SAMAT, but is it in a kitchen where you have to kosher the kitchen after? Do they have to bring in a rabbi to make sure that that line is fully, how would they sanitize everything, with flamethrowers or whatnot, blowtorches? So they have to do that that sounds dangerous inside an industrial setting, like a brewery.
So when we
with all that
when we first bought some used equipment. We had to hire the koshering agency to come in, and they had flame flowers, and the temperature has to get above 500 degrees, I think it is. So they definitely like came in, and it was a whole, and I've had some interesting push. Like I've argued with the rabbis a little bit based on some law. They wanted us to get rid of some carboys because they said they weren't kosher. But there's this interesting thing with glass being kosher. If something non-kosher sits in glass for more than 24 hours, then that glass is no longer kosher. But if it's less than 24 hours,
forever that glass is no longer kosher?
Forever, until you re-dip it into the mikveh water and make it kosher again. But if it's less than 24 hours, then the glass hasn't absorbed the non-kosher material. This is like rabbinic decisions, which are so random. So I was arguing with them that like the carboys never held the liquid for more than 24 hours, and I shouldn't have to throw out these carboys. They were like, who are you? And why are you coming to me with this? I was like, I don't want to replace these things.
I imagine that there aren't a lot of based on the number of kosher breweries in the world, in the country, there probably aren't a lot of rabbis who are super familiar with the brewing process. Was there a mutual vetting process of sort of anyone being like, I'm slightly over my skis on this one? Or were rabbis intrigued by the option of talking to brewers? How is that process?
I have one more question to tag on to that. So in Portland, are there any other breweries that have any lines that are kosher certified?
Not in Portland, but Full Sail in Hood River does do, or they did at least pre-pandemic. They were doing some kosher lines. And then we also have the same koshering agency that does us, which is Oregon Kosher, also does Hood River Distilling. So they do some spirits, and then they also go out and do some wines in Washington and Oregon. So the thing is, they have a whole network, right? Like there's all these different koshering agencies, and depending actually on your level of observance, maybe sometimes you won't accept one community's certification because it's not enough, right? Especially around milk and meat products. We're a little bit easier because we're parv, which means we're neutral. So we neither have milk nor meat in our products, which helps. Once you get into like milk and dairy, dairy and meat, it's a whole thing. But it's been an interesting process. I think, first of all, the rabbis are great to work with. I formally, previously, worked as a Jewish professional for over a decade. So I was the executive director of the Holocaust Center. And when I was pregnant with our third son and we decided to start the brewery, I quit working in the Jewish community at the time. And part of my desire to affirm our Jewish identity was having this kosher certification and really making it very clear that although weirdly, I will say we don't keep kosher at home, that we are a Jewish brewery. Like that was very important to say that as part of our identity, because it's who we are as a family and who we are. And for us, Judaism embodies our values, right? These values of tzedakah and tikkun olam, and also just being grounded in community. So that was really important to us. So the rabbis at first were not, they would try to talk to my husband. Just that some of that was just that like woman, male tension that happens sometimes in any more religious setting, regardless of if it's Judaism or Christianity or whatever. But they figured out pretty quickly that I was the more knowledgeable one. I was the one that wanted this, and I was going to be the boss. So they're wonderful. And I just have them on WhatsApp. So when we create a new recipe, I'll just snap pictures of the certifications and I'll say, this is our new recipe. What do you think? Or if we're looking for a new ingredient, like we made a beer this year for Rosh Hashanah called Major Palm. And it was a pomegranate beer. And we weren't happy with the color. And we're like, if we could like throw some hibiscus in, it could probably round this out color wise. So just just sent them a text and I was like, this is the hibiscus I want to use. What do you think? And he's like, okay, but I would prefer this one. Sometimes he'll say, that's fine, but I would prefer this company because they're Jewish owned. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I will try to stay in the tribe, but sometimes it's cheaper not to.
That's so 21st century. I know Chad has a question about sort of some of your business community, but want to get to a couple Q&A questions specifically about some of the beers. Janice Hoplin, a question from Ethan. What hop varietals are we looking at here, and when were they added? I'm imagining since this beer was made on the opposite side of the country for me, that it's gonna be a different answer than what I'm used to.
Yeah. So what's interesting is this is our flagship IPA and she's evolved, right? So we've been in business since 2014 and we started out and she was super classic C hops, right? So I saw someone was like, oh, this takes me back. It's kind of like an old school IPA. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. But we've tried to update it a little bit over time. So it used to be Cascade, Columbus, Chinook, like very much Oregon classic hops. And over time, we have added some of those more modern hops. So there's Centennial, Citra, and Amarillo in this one now. So she has kind of over time gotten a little bit juicier, shall we say, maybe a little more tropically, less of the piney dankiness that those other hops bring in. And that's really been to keep her relevant, right? So I think the first time somebody was like, this beer tastes like the 90s, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, it's perfect though. The addition of more of those modern, it mellows out that bite at the end, which I think is like, really awesome.
She definitely was more bitey and more just like old school. So we had to, I think we didn't have to, but we felt like part of being, we think, a good company is not necessarily staying static in what we do, right? So there are definitely people that are gonna be like, oh, I really missed when you made this beer this way. But we're always trying to improve and we're always trying to do better. And we're also trying to be, knowledgeable and perfect our craft all the time. So that's been her evolution. She's changed in her hops. I'm glad it matches your 30-year-old memories of the 90s.
This is a yes or I guess it's sort of a yes or no question. Is the Winter Red from last year, is that still in production? If so, no.
No, that was a one-time collab with Zoigl House Brewing. And that one was actually not certified kosher. If you saw, there was not a hechsher on the side.
Because of the collaboration.
Because we did it at Zoigl House. So if you look on the side of Janice, you'll see a little State of Oregon with a K on it. That's going to be your hechsher from Oregon Kosher.
I'm trying to do this without like spilling. But...
There you go. You see it? Oregon Kosher.
I've never seen an Oregon kosher product. I don't think ever. So being on the East Coast.
It's a very small koshering agency, but they do also go out. I think they do Tillamook cheese now. They might do a couple other. They do Oregon, Washington, and Idaho mostly. So
back to Janice Hoplin. Scott wants to know how naming your beer. Janice Hoplin, tremendous pun. When I first saw it, I was like, no, her name was Janice Joplin. Like, how are you up? Theo, right? Is your husband's name? The two of you up at night, just like racking your brains for funny puns? Is it you know it when you see it? How do you come up with these beer names?
Well, this is an OG, so it was much easier in the beginning. We most of our beers are named after music or musicians. Now, last year's was named after a Langston Hughes poem. So we try to bring inspiration from art, but most of the time it's music, and most of the time it's musical overlap that my husband and I share together. So he kind of listens to some weird music, and he will tell you that I listen to like country and pop. Although I did get the Haziana Grande, which is our hazy IPA. So that was my win.
That's a good one. I
Yep.
love that.
And
That is a good
recently we just did an Alicia Key Lime Sour. So that was a good one. We just sit around. We just sit around and have fun. But yeah, Janice Hopland was one early on. We also have a Mob Barley Stout. Like most of our flagships are classic rock because that's where we overlap. And that's really, Theo and I met in middle school. And I think maybe not all middle or high schoolers go through this phase, but we went through like the Grateful Dead, like all that beautiful, like the Beatles and all this like beautiful, rich music. And we went through that stage together when we were younger. So
When me and Todd were just talking prior to this, I was like, Janis Joplin, Jewish? I don't know if anyone in the chat was like, who types when famous people are Jewish? Well, it turns out she's not Jewish, but the producer who found her, Bobby Shad, was Jewish, and that's what came up when I typed in if Janis Joplin was Jewish. So I've got a question. So you mentioned Tikkun Olam and tzedakah, and I wanted to I know that's so important to you in regards to the brewery, and I want to know how you are giving back and helping repair the world through those Tikkun Olam and tzedakah.
yeah. Well, we really believe that community is super important. And from the very beginning, we're still pretty small, not gonna lie, we're not making a ton of money here. We have 2.5 employees, which feels monumental, but we have always dedicated a percentage of all of our sales to different organizations. So we have 7 organizations that we have long-term relationships with that we really believe too in long-term relationships. So we'll do pint nights at the brewery where any nonprofit can get like $1 from each pint. But our actual beers that we can and distribute, those we really have selected organizations in different areas. So if you look on the Janis Hopland, it should say on the side, it supports music education. So this particular
so they don't go
beer,
bye baby.
Yeah. So this particular beer supports an organization called My Voice Music. I would love you to look them up. My Voice Music works with all sorts of youth, but started off in particular working with at-risk youth. And they do music creation, and they've just expanded across the state. They're amazing and fantastic people. We also actively participate as much as we can in a lot of the national collaboratives that you might have seen. So Black is Beautiful. We just did a 1 in 4 beer that benefits Raphael House of Portland, which supports domestic violence survivors. And our Grateful Red also supports Raphael House. So that was a nice opportunity to give twice to them this year. We did Native Lands, but we really believe that the community lifts us up. And so we deserve, they deserve the same from us. And we try to do also other fun things. So we just installed a little free library to promote diverse books and literacy and fun things like that.
That's
That
awesome.
Refreshing.
Love
My
that.
goodness. That's lovely to hear. Do you find, my guess is for you, based on everything you've said about sort of your business like ethos, it seems like it's being a part of the community it sounds like second nature to you. Do you feel like ever you're sort of trying to play business and good at the same time? Do they ever come in conflict, or are you, is it so fundamental to your business that it's, easy to do? Because I think, we're a small business. We have a lot of ways that we try to give back as well. And, sometimes like we have to keep the lights on, and that's something we have to think about.
Yeah, so part of why we chose to focus on 7 organizations was because early on, we just had so many asks and we just could not meet the needs of what people were asking. So, every local school wanted a donation, everybody wanted something. And it felt like, wait, y'all, like we can barely tread water here.
2.5 employees.
Yeah, so at the time, we didn't have any employees. It was just us. And so we really sat down and thought about, how do we intentionally want to navigate this conflict of like lots of people needing things and us not having a lot to give? And so initially it started off with those focused organizations. Now that we have a tap room and a space that we can open up, we're able to offer that space to organizations at no cost and do some other things. I see our tap room as a community center. I don't see it as just a place to sell beer. I see it as a place where folks gather together, where we can do education, where we can do music, where we can do all sorts of things. So that's how I see it. It has been tough though to have to say no. But I've learned that it's not always good for business to say yes, and you have to balance business and community.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Chad. Do we do our final question? It's that.
It's night one's essentially over.
We still have more questions. It's not over yet.
We
draw it out.
We do have yeah, we can draw it out. Yeah. Do you wanna ask that the final question, Todd?
So I want to know what's next. 2023 tap room is open. I want to know what you're doing. What should we look for from you in 2023? How do we get more of your beer, more of your business, your strong foundational business, and
a new role, right? And I think you have a new role, a pretty important role within.
Want to hear about that too?
I do.
Yeah. I was trying to beat around the bush. Chad's a little more direct.
I am more direct.
Well, first off, for all the Jews, we have new merch. I'm really excited about it. I wish I could show you it very well, but we have a hamsa with all the elements that you need to make beer. We finally have merch, so that's really exciting.
That's
it's
awesome.
The little things. The pandemic supply chain affected everything. So growth, and as far as we're hoping for a second tap room at some point. We're going to continue to expand. We just expanded, we self-distribute, and we just expanded into Washington State. So if you're in Washington State and you'd like Leikam beer, please make that request, because we are driving up in our minivan once a month to drop off beer up in Washington. So that's
and
really
if you're
exciting.
not in Washington, go on to Leikam Beer, which is in the chat right now, and go buy some of that new merch.
Do it.
I mean, who doesn't want a
We don't have merch.
Beer? Yeah, we don't even have. So bad.
Yeah, it's super cool. There's like a hop in the middle, and then barley and water and yeast. So it's all the elements to make beer.
So cool.
And as far as our growth, so you alluded to, I was recently elected the president of the Oregon Brewers Guild, which is a privilege. And I think I'm the first woman in quite some time to hold that role. Josh, maybe it's not on there. It's definitely in our store, but I'll fix that after I get off here if there's a problem with the merch. So I'm also the web designer. Just a heads up, if there's any errors, please let me know. So work with the Guild has been amazing. I've been on the board of the Guild since 2019 and really started our DEI work there in 2019 by forming a committee and looking at how we could really be a more inclusive and equitable space here in Oregon. And we recently launched our first big initiative called Mashing Barriers, which is a internship and scholarship
Great
program
pun.
for folks who have been marginalized in the industry. So we just had our first participant, a wonderful Latina who did a 12-week internship at Von Ebert Brewing, who is amazing. And in addition, got to go to, Crosby Hop Farms and Great Western Malting and go to Imperial Yeast and all these, we're lucky here. We have all these raw suppliers and all these amazing breweries. And our next intern will be at Deschutes Brewery in Bend. So we're really excited for that program and just working towards making the industry more equitable. So that's on our list.
It's definitely important to City Brew Tours as well. We have Talent on Tap, which is a scholarship for women of color to get into the craft beer industry that we have. And this will be the third year doing that. So it's great that you're
Applications
part of that.
open in January.
Yeah. So if you know
Very
any women
cool.
of color that would be interested in that
$2,500
scholarship, yeah, Talent on Tap at City Brew Tours. Plug that in.
Lovely. Well, this was a pleasure. It was a privilege to talk to you about your beer. It looks like there's some requests for how to buy your merchandise. So that might be, I don't think we've ever left with like a business related action
That's my
item
action
for you.
item. I'll get right on it, y'all.
This is ending like any other Zoom call has ever ended.
I gotta light the candles, give some gifts,
amazing.
and then I'll update the website.
So we'll remind people tomorrow when we log on. Thank you so much for joining us. And Chad will be back tomorrow, 9 p.m.
Yeah, 9 p.m. night 3. We've got some awesome guests that I've known for a very, very long time. So
we're meeting Chad's high school friends.
We're meeting my high school friends, but they're also not just high school friends. That would just be weird if I was like, hey, high school buddies, do you want to just come on a random, you're Jewish, you want to come on a random Zoom call with a bunch of other Jews around the country? So no, we're not doing that, but we'll see everyone tomorrow, 9 p.m. and happy Hanukkah, everyone. Thanks so much,
Happy
Sonia.
Hanukkah.
You're very welcome.
Good to see you again.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.